Let me tell you about the moment my world exploded and how I rebuilt it into something my husband never saw coming. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where the sky bleeds purple and the air smells like rain that never falls. I came home early, heels clicking on our marble entryway, carrying takeout from Mark's favorite Thai place. 8 years of marriage, and I still remembered he loved the pad CU extra spicy. That's what a good wife does, right? She remembers, she sacrifices, she keeps the home perfect while her husband climbs the corporate ladder. I was about to call out to him when I heard voices drifting from his home office. His voice, that deep, confident tone I'd fallen in love with in college, and another voice, a woman's, light, flirtatious. My heart stuttered, but I told myself it was innocent, a work call, nothing more. Then I heard the words that would change everything. "You're kidding," the woman purred through his speaker. "She really doesn't work? Just sits around all day?" Mark's laugh, God, that arrogant chuckle he used when he wanted to impress someone, cut through me like glass. "Worse than that, babe. Emily's worthless, dead weight. I mean, she cooks and cleans, sure, but come on. No ambition, no drive. If it weren't for my job pulling in the big bucks, we'd be on the street. She's lucky I stick around." Worthless. The word hit me like a physical blow. The Thai takeout bag slipped from my fingers, thud, landing on the hardwood floor I'd polished that morning. My hands trembled, my vision blurred. 8 years. 8 years I'd supported him through 3 failed startups. 8 years I'd smiled through his client dinners that left him reeking of perfume. 8 years I'd pretended not to notice the credit card charges from hotels I'd never seen. I peeked through the crack in the door. There he sat, my husband leaning back in his leather chair like a king on a throne, video call glowing on his screen. The woman, sharp features, red lips, predatory smile, wore a blouse cut low enough to kill. Behind her, I recognized the sleek glass walls of the conference room, Apex Innovations, the company where Mark was a rising star in sales. "When are you leaving her?" the woman asked, twirling her hair. "We could be so much more, Mark." "Soon, Tara, soon. Just need to lock in that VP promotion first. Can't risk messy alimony before I'm set up." My breathing stopped. Everything stopped. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the calculation. The cold, clinical way he'd mapped out discarding me like expired produce. But here's the thing they didn't know. Here's the part that makes this story worth every second of your time. That company Mark worked for, Apex Innovations, where he strutted around like he owned the place, where he bragged about his killer instincts that landed him the job, where he was chasing that VP promotion like a dog after a bone. I own it. Every brick, every employee, every dollar that flows through those accounts. I founded Apex Innovations 5 years ago in secret, building it into a multi-million-dollar empire, while he dismissed my little business ideas as cute hobbies. And he had absolutely no idea. If you've ever been called worthless by someone who should have cherished you, stick with me. Because what happens next? It's the sweetest revenge you'll ever hear. And if you want to see how this unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss a single moment of this. Let me take you back to where it all began. To understand how deep this betrayal cut, you need to know where we started. Mark and I met at State University during our junior year. I was the quiet finance major who spent Friday nights in the library analyzing market trends while everyone else partied. He was the charismatic business major who could sell ice to Eskimos. His words, not mine. We met when he needed tutoring in financial accounting, and I was stupid enough to think his struggles were cute. "You're brilliant," he'd say, watching me solve equations he couldn't grasp. "But book smarts and real-world business? 2 different animals, babe." I should have heard the condescension then, but I was 21 and in love with his confidence, the way he commanded a room, how he made me feel like maybe I could be more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. We dated through senior year, and 3 months after graduation, he proposed at the same campus library where we'd met. Romantic, right? I thought it was fate. "We're going to conquer the world together, Em," he promised, sliding that modest diamond ring on my finger. You and me against everything. Except his version of together meant I'd handle the home front while he chased dreams. His first job out of college was in pharmaceutical sales. He was good at it. Charming doctors, closing deals, bringing home decent commission checks. But it was never enough for Mark. He wanted empire-building money, private jet money. So he quit to launch a tech startup with his frat buddy. I supported him. Worked as a junior analyst at an accounting firm, pulled 60-hour weeks, came home to cook dinner while he pitched investors. His startup failed within 18 months, burned through his savings and half of mine. It's okay, I soothed him while he drank himself stupid on our couch. You'll figure it out. He tried again and again. 3 startups in 5 years, each one crashing harder than the last. Meanwhile, I climbed to senior analyst, then financial manager. My parents passed in a car accident during year 2 of our marriage. Sudden, brutal, the kind of loss that hollows you out. They left me a modest inheritance, $400,000. Not enough to retire on, but enough to change a life if used wisely. Mark saw opportunity. This could fund my next venture, Em. The big one. I can feel it. I saw something different. Late one night, unable to sleep after another of his failed pitches, I sketched out a business plan. Software solutions for mid-sized companies, streamlining operations, cutting costs, maximizing efficiency. The market was hungry for it. I knew because I'd analyzed the gaps for years. When I showed Mark, he barely glanced up from his laptop. That's cute, honey. But enterprise software? You'd get eaten alive. Stick to what you know, balance sheets and home stuff. Leave the big swings to people with vision. People with vision. Like him, who'd failed 3 times. Something calcified in my chest that night. I opened a separate bank account the next morning, created a holding company under my maiden name, Thorn Holdings, LLC. Invested $350,000 of my inheritance into launching Apex Innovations, keeping $50,000 as emergency cushion. I hired a proxy CEO, a brilliant woman named Margaret Chen, who'd been squeezed out of a Fortune 500 for being too assertive. I told her the truth. I was the owner and founder, but I needed to operate in shadows for personal reasons. Thorn stays anonymous, I explained over coffee at a cafe 3 towns over where Mark would never go. You'll be the public face. I'll make all strategic decisions remotely. Margaret smiled, a warrior recognizing another. Some battles require invisibility. I respect that. Let's build something extraordinary. And we did. Year 1 was brutal. 18-hour days, my accounting job serving as cover while I actually built Apex from our spare bedroom when Mark traveled for his 4th startup attempt. Year 2, we landed our first Fortune 500 client. Year 3, we expanded to 3 cities, hired 200 employees, and cleared $8 million in revenue. Mark never noticed. He was too busy failing, then finally landing a corporate sales job he actually kept. At some company called Apex Innovations. His recruiter called it a fast-growing tech firm with serious upside potential. I'd approved his hiring personally, anonymously, of course. Margaret sent me his resume. This Mark Reynolds guy has persistence, I'll give him that. Multiple startup attempts. Think he's worth a shot? I stared at his application photo. My husband, applying to my company, completely unaware. Hire him, I typed back. Sales department, standard package. Let's give him stability. I thought I was being generous. Giving him the career win he desperately needed, supporting him the way he'd never supported me. Looking back, I was just setting the stage for my own heartbreak. The signs were there long before that video call. I just didn't want to see them. It started about 6 months after Mark joined Apex. He'd come home later and later, loosening his tie in the hallway with that satisfied smirk men get when they think they're getting away with something. Big client dinner, he'd explain, breath minty fresh from aggressive gum chewing. But I'd smell it anyway. Floral perfume, definitely not mine, clinging to his collar like an accusation. How was your day? I'd ask, stirring pasta sauce, playing the role so perfectly I almost believed it myself. Exhausting. This job's demanding, Em. High-stakes environment. You wouldn't understand. Right. I wouldn't understand the company I built. The credit card statements started showing irregularities. Charges from hotels downtown on Tuesday afternoons. Our joint card, the one he swore he only used for legitimate business expenses. Expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Flowers from a boutique florist, never delivered to our home. When I asked about them once, casually, while folding his laundry, he barely looked up from his phone. Client appreciation gifts, babe. It's called relationship building. Maybe if you worked in the real world, you'd get it. Each dismissal was a paper cut. Small, stinging, adding up. I could have confronted him then. Should have. Probably. But I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure, the lonely housewife imagining betrayal because she was bored. Except I wasn't bored. I was running a multi-million-dollar company from my home office while he thought I was watching daytime television and organizing Pinterest boards. Then came the texts. His phone started lighting up at odd hours, during dinner, during the rare movie nights when I could trick him into sitting beside me on the couch. Always the same name. Tara, work. One night while he showered, curiosity won. His phone sat on the nightstand, unlocked because he'd gotten sloppy with security. I picked it up, hands shaking. The messages were careful. Not explicitly sexual, but intimate in ways that made my stomach turn. Inside jokes, emoji combinations that suggested private meaning, plans to grab coffee before the morning meeting that never included anyone else from the team, and photos, her photos. Professional headshots that were just slightly too posed, too aware of their own appeal. I searched her name in the Apex employee directory that night, logged in through my secret admin access. Tara Wilkins, 29, junior sales representative, hired 8 months ago. Performance reviews showed aggressive ambition and a tendency to leverage personal relationships for professional gain, HR speak for flirting her way up the ladder. I started monitoring the office Slack channels I'd always had access to but rarely checked. The company gossip channel lit up with speculation. Anyone else notice Mark Reynolds and Tara are always in meetings together? They took a client lunch that lasted 3 hours yesterday. Pretty sure I saw them leaving the parking garage in the same car last week. My chest tightened reading each message. Strangers, my own employees, knew something was happening before I could admit it to myself. Mark's behavior at home shifted too. He stopped asking about my day entirely, not that he'd ever really cared. But now, he didn't even pretend. He'd walk through the door, grunt a greeting, grab dinner, and retreat to his office for evening emails. Sometimes I'd hear him laughing, that intimate low chuckle saved for private jokes, never directed at me anymore. "You seem distant," I ventured one evening, setting his favorite bourbon in front of him while he typed furiously on his laptop. He glanced up, annoyed at the interruption. "I'm busy, Em, climbing the ladder here. VP of sales could open up soon, and I'm positioning myself for it. Some of us have ambitions beyond keeping a house clean." The words landed like slaps, but I swallowed them. Nodded, walked away, because confrontation would mean admission, and I wasn't ready to admit what I already knew deep in my bones. Something was broken, something I'd tried so hard to preserve, despite the cracks spreading like spider webs through glass. I loved him, or loved who I'd thought he was. The boy who'd proposed in that library, the man who'd promised we'd conquer the world together, but that man was gone, if he'd ever really existed at all. My internal war raged through sleepless nights. Part of me wanted to shake him awake, demand truth, force the confrontation that would shatter our facade. The other part, the part that had built an empire in secret, that understood patience and strategy, whispered to wait, to watch, to gather evidence before making moves. Love and suspicion can't coexist peacefully. One eventually devours the other. I just didn't know which one would win. Not yet. But then came that Tuesday evening, and the choice was made for me. I'd left my board meeting, really a video conference with Margaret and our investors discussing Q4 projections, earlier than planned. Apex stock was climbing, and the meeting wrapped up quickly with unanimous approval of our expansion strategy. I was in a good mood for once, deciding to surprise Mark with his favorite takeout as an olive branch. Maybe we could reconnect. Talk. Remember why we'd fallen in love. The house smelled like the lavender diffuser I'd set up that morning, mingling with fresh coffee from the pot I'd brewed before leaving. I'd even lit candles in the living room, preparing for a romantic evening. Pathetic, right? Trying to seduce my own husband into paying attention to me, I slipped off my heels quietly. They were killing my feet after a full day, and padded down the hallway in stockings. The Thai takeout bag crinkled softly in my hand, and I rehearsed what I'd say. Something light, flirty even. Thought my handsome husband might want. Then I heard her voice drifting from his office. Smooth, confident, designed to make men feel powerful. You're kidding, she really doesn't work, just sits around all day? I froze mid-step, blood turning to ice water in my veins. Mark's laugh, God, I knew that laugh. The one he used at office parties when trying to impress executives. The one that said, I'm letting you in on a secret. Worse than that, babe. Emily's worthless, dead weight. I mean, she cooks and cleans, sure, but come on, no ambition, no drive. If it weren't for my job pulling in the big bucks, we'd be on the street. She's lucky I stick around. The takeout bag slipped from my fingers. Thud. But they didn't hear over their laughter, intimate and conspiratorial. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Through the crack in the door, I could see him, my husband of 8 years, leaning back in his leather chair like a king holding court. His laptop screen glowed with her face. Tara Wilkins. I recognized her from the employee database photos I'd studied like battlefield intelligence, but seeing her live was different. She was beautiful in that manufactured way. Sharp cheekbones, red lipstick applied with precision, blonde hair cascading over shoulders displayed by a blouse cut low enough to be problematic in any professional setting. Behind her, the sleek glass walls of Apex's conference room reflected afternoon light. She was calling him from my building, during work hours, using company equipment for a personal video call. God, Mark, you're too good for that, she purred, leaning forward so her cleavage filled more of the screen. Subtle. When are you going to leave her? We could be so much more together. Think about it. Power couple vibes, both of us killing it at Apex, neither of us dragged down by dead weight. My nails dug into my palms, drawing blood I wouldn't notice until later. Mark ran his fingers through his hair, that gesture he always used when feeling cocky. Soon, Tara, soon. Just need to lock in that VP of sales position first, the one opening up when Michaels retires next quarter. Once I've got that secured, bigger salary, better stock options, then I can handle the divorce without it wrecking me financially. Smart, she cooed. Can't let her take half of everything you've built. Everything he'd built. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Exactly. I've got a buddy who's a divorce lawyer. Says if I play it right, claim she never contributed financially, I can minimize alimony. Maybe even get out clean since we don't have kids. They discussed dismantling my life like it was a business transaction, revenue streams to protect, assets to shield, collateral damage to minimize. I was a line item on a spreadsheet he wanted to erase. You're so strategic, Tara breathed, and I could see her eyes gleaming with something predatory. That's what I love about you. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. I learned from the best, Mark said, that arrogant smirk spreading across his face. This company's taught me a lot about playing the long game. Speaking of which, you free tonight? That hotel downtown, the one with the good room service? Already made reservations, baby. Suite 412, 7 o'clock. Perfect. I'll tell Emily I have a late client dinner. She'll believe anything. My knees buckled. I slid down the wall, sitting on the hardwood floor I'd polished just that morning, while they laughed about my stupidity, about how easy I was to fool, about their plans to destroy me systematically while I played house like a trained pet. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the calculation, the coldness, the complete absence of guilt or humanity. Worthless. The word echoed in my skull like a scream in an empty room, after everything I'd sacrificed. After building him up through every failure, after creating the very company that employed him, giving him the stability and salary he used to fund his betrayal. I sat there in the dim hallway, takeout forgotten, while they continued planning my destruction, and something inside me, something that had been bending under the weight of his disrespect for years, finally snapped. Not into pieces, into sharp edges, into something dangerous. If he wanted to see worthless, I'd show him what value really looked like. I spent that night in the guest room, claiming a headache. Mark bought it without question, probably relieved to not have to pretend affection. While he slept soundly in our bed, how could he sleep? I lay awake in the dark, mind racing through 5 years of careful construction. Apex innovations, my empire, my vision made real. Let me take you back to the beginning to show you exactly what Mark had no clue existed. After that night when he dismissed my software business idea as cute, I'd worked with Margaret Chen to build something extraordinary from nothing. We started in year 1 with just 5 employees working from a shared office space. I'd analyzed market gaps obsessively, identifying mid-sized companies desperate for customized operational software that the big players ignored as unprofitable. Our first client was a regional healthcare network drowning in inefficient record systems. We built them a streamlined solution for $200,000. It worked so well they referred us to 3 other healthcare companies. Word spread like wildfire through industries starving for innovation that actually understood their problems. By year 2, we'd expanded to manufacturing solutions. By year 3, financial services. Each success funded the next level of growth. I reinvested profits aggressively, hiring the best developers I could find. Brilliant people overlooked by tech giants for being too expensive or too opinionated. They were loyal because I valued them, actually listened, implemented their ideas. Margaret handled all public appearances, press interviews, industry conferences, client meetings where face-to-face impressions mattered. To the outside world, she was Apex Innovations, but every strategic decision flowed through me. E. Thorne, the reclusive owner who preferred to operate from behind the curtain. "Why stay hidden?" Margaret had asked during our year 3 expansion meeting. "You've built something incredible. You deserve the recognition." "Recognition isn't the goal," I'd replied, watching Apex's stock ticker climb on my home office monitor while Mark complained downstairs about his latest failed venture. "Results are. Besides, anonymity has advantages." I hadn't known then just how crucial that anonymity would become. By the time Mark applied to Apex, we'd grown to 200 employees across 3 cities. Annual revenue had hit $47 million. We'd landed contracts with Fortune 500 companies, household names that trusted our solutions with their most critical operations. My personal net worth had climbed to 8 figures, all of it hidden in trusts and holding companies Mark knew nothing about. When his resume crossed Margaret's desk, I'd stared at it for an hour. My husband, applying to my company. The irony was almost poetic. His qualifications were mediocre, multiple startup failures softened by creative language like entrepreneurial ventures and innovation-focused initiatives. His sales numbers from his current corporate job were decent but unremarkable. Any other applicant with that track record would have been rejected, but I'd approved him anyway. Gave him a chance at stability, a real salary with benefits and growth potential. I thought I was being generous, supporting him the way spouses should, maybe even hoping that success at Apex would restore his confidence, bring back the man I'd married. Instead, I'd handed him the stage where he'd betray me most completely. Now, Lying in the guest room while rage and grief warred in my chest, I realized the scope of power I held. As majority owner of Apex Innovations, I had access to everything. Every email sent through company servers, every security camera in every office, every HR file, performance review, and expense report, every financial transaction. I could see exactly what Mark and Tara had been doing, where they'd been, how long, with proof that would hold up in any court. But more than that, I controlled his entire professional existence, his salary, his position, his future. The VP role he was chasing so desperately, I'd decide who got it. The stock options he'd use to fund our divorce, I'd determine their value, his reputation in the industry. One word from E. Thorne could destroy it forever. He thought I was worthless. He had no idea I was the architect of his entire world. The decision crystallized around 3 a.m., sharp and clear as shattered glass. I wouldn't explode. Wouldn't scream or throw things or give him the satisfaction of an emotional reaction he could use against me. No, I'd take the path I'd always taken, strategic, patient, devastatingly thorough. I'd dismantle him piece by piece, let him feel what worthless really meant. But I'd need help, allies. I picked up my phone and texted Sarah, my best friend since college, the only person who knew about Apex from the beginning. She was a corporate lawyer now, brilliant and ruthless in the courtroom. If anyone could help me architect the perfect revenge while staying on the right side of legal lines, it was her. Emergency. Need to meet ASAP. It's Mark. Her response came within minutes. Coffee shop, 7 a.m. I'll bring the good lawyer brain. As dawn broke through the guest room window, I felt something shifting inside me. The grief was still there, raw and bleeding. But beneath it grew something harder, colder, more purposeful. If Mark wanted to play strategic games, he'd just challenged the wrong opponent. He'd been playing checkers while I'd been building chess kingdoms. And he'd just made the fatal mistake of underestimating the quiet woman he'd dismissed for 8 years. Time to show him what I'd been building while he thought I was worthless. Time to teach him that the most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody notices. Time for him to learn that I wasn't lucky he'd stuck around. He was about to discover he'd been lucky I'd let him stay. The morning after my meeting with Sarah, I woke up with purpose burning through my veins like rocket fuel. She'd listened to everything over coffee at a cafe 40 minutes from our neighborhood, far enough that no one would recognize us. Her eyes had widened as I laid out the full scope, the company ownership, the affair, the worthless comment that still echoed in my skull like a curse. "Em," she'd said, setting down her latte with trembling hands, "you have nuclear weapons at your disposal. We could destroy him tomorrow, legally, completely." "I don't want tomorrow," I'd replied, my voice steady despite the rage simmering underneath. "I want him to feel every single consequence. I want him to understand exactly what he threw away before I take it all." Sarah had smiled then, that sharp, predatory smile that made her dangerous in courtrooms. "Then let's plan this perfectly. Patient, surgical. By the time we're done, he won't know what hit him." Now, 3 weeks into the performance of my life, I'd become a master of deception. Every morning I woke before dawn to prepare Mark's breakfast exactly how he liked it. Eggs over easy, bacon crispy, toast with butter melting into every corner. I'd set it on the table with fresh squeezed orange juice and the newspaper folded to the business section, then greet him with a smile that felt like swallowing glass. "Morning, honey," I'd chirp, watching him barely acknowledge my existence as he scrolled through his phone, probably texting Tara, probably planning their next hotel rendezvous. "Yeah," he'd grunt, shoveling food into his mouth like I was the hired help. Inside, I was screaming. But on the surface, perfect, devoted, worthless little Emily who couldn't possibly threaten anyone. The real work happened in the hours he was gone. I'd installed the Apex security app on my personal phone months ago. Standard owner privilege, though Mark had no idea. From my home office, I could access every camera in every building. I watched him meet Tara in conference rooms that suddenly needed to be reserved for private client calls. I watched them slip into the parking garage together during lunch breaks. I watched her perch on the edge of his desk, leaning forward so her blouse gaped, while he ate up the attention like a starving dog. Each viewing was a knife twist, but I documented everything. Timestamps, screenshots, building an archive of betrayal that would be irrefutable when the moment came. If he only knew, I whispered to my computer screen, watching them laugh together in the break room, that every camera he thinks is for security is actually watching him destroy his life. The hardest part was maintaining composure when he came home. He'd walk through the door around 7 or 8, later and later as the weeks progressed, reeking of her perfume mixed with guilty cologne applications. I'd greet him with dinner prepared, asking about his day like I cared while my internal monologue raged. "How was your day, darling? Did you enjoy the hour you spent with your mistress in the supply closet on the 3rd floor? Did she tell you again how much better she is than your worthless wife?" But out loud, "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of how hard you're working." My niece Lily sensed something was wrong. She'd moved in with us 6 months ago after her parents, my sister and brother-in-law, died in a boating accident. At 12, she was perceptive in that way kids are when adults think they're being subtle. One evening, while Mark was working late, really meeting Tara at their usual hotel, I'd checked the cameras. Lily found me in the kitchen staring at nothing, a wine glass dangling from my fingers. "Aunt Em?" Her voice was small, worried. "Are you okay? You seem different." I turned to her, this child who'd lost so much already, and felt my heart crack wider. She had my sister's eyes, soft brown, trusting, innocent. I couldn't let Mark's poison touch her. She'd already been through enough trauma. "I'm fine, sweetie," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Just tired, adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is Uncle Mark okay? He's been mean lately. Yesterday he yelled at me for leaving my backpack in the hallway." My blood chilled. Mean to Lily? I'd overheard him once calling her annoying under his breath when she'd asked him to help with homework. But yelling at her? That crossed a line I hadn't even known existed. "Uncle Mark is going through some things," I said carefully, smoothing her hair. "But you're safe here. Always. I promise you that." She nodded against my shoulder, and I made a silent vow. Whatever happened with the divorce, Lily stayed with me. She'd already lost her parents. She wouldn't lose stability again. The next day, I made a call to Tom Chen, head of Apex Security and one of the few people who knew E. Thorne's true identity. Tom was ex-military, 6'3" of loyalty and discretion. I'd hired him in year 2 when we'd expanded to multiple locations and needed someone trustworthy managing our security infrastructure. "Ms. Thorne," he answered on the first ring, his voice gravelly and alert. "What can I do for you?" "Tom, I need you to monitor 2 employees for me, Mark Reynolds and Tara Wilkins. Document everything, meetings, movements, interactions. If they're using company resources inappropriately, I want to know." There was a pause. Tom was smart enough to read between lines. "This personal or professional, ma'am?" "Both." And Tom, "This stays between us. No reports to Margaret or HR yet. Just you and me." "Understood. Consider it done." Having Tom in my corner felt like strapping on armor. He'd see things I might miss, catch moments when I was too blinded by emotion to think clearly. He was my enforcer, my witness, my proof that I wasn't crazy or paranoid. That night, Mark came home and actually kissed my cheek, a rare gesture that made my skin crawl. "Good day?" I asked, stirring risotto that I knew he'd barely taste. "Great day," he said, and there was something smug in his tone, something victorious. "Things are really falling into place at work. I can feel that VP position getting closer." I smiled, ladling his dinner into a bowl. "That's wonderful, honey. You've worked so hard. If you only knew that the VP position you're chasing is mine to give, that every step you think you're climbing is actually me positioning you for a fall you can't even imagine." "Yeah," he said, scrolling through his phone again. "Probably Tara. Always Tara." Hard work pays off. Not that you'd understand, but trust me, success takes sacrifice. I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. I'm sure you're right. 3 weeks of this. 3 weeks of swallowing rage like poison. 3 weeks of playing the devoted wife while plotting his systematic destruction. But patience was a weapon too. And unlike Mark, I knew how to use it. The facade held, perfect and uncrackable. And beneath it, the real work was just beginning. On a Thursday morning, while Mark showered and Lily ate breakfast before school, I sent the first strike. Logged into my secure eThorn account, I composed an email to Apex's HR director, Patricia Mills, a sharp woman in her 50s who ran our human resources department like a well-oiled machine. Patricia, initiate random expense audits for the sales team. Focus on high performers with significant client entertainment budgets. Flag any irregularities for immediate review. Eat short, professional, seemingly routine. Patricia wouldn't question it. Expense audits happened quarterly. And focusing on high spenders was standard procedure for catching fraud. She had no idea I was targeting one person specifically. Within 2 hours, my phone pinged with her response. Audit initiated. We'll have preliminary findings by Monday. I smiled into my coffee. Monday. Mark had 4 days to sweat before the hammer started falling. He came home that Friday evening whistling, actually whistling, like a man without a care in the world. I'd made his favorite dinner, grilled steak with roasted potatoes and asparagus, the condemned man's last meal, though he didn't know it yet. "Smells amazing," he said, loosening his tie. For a second, he almost looked like the man I'd married. Then he checked his phone, and that familiar cold distance settled back over his features. "Oh, got a client thing tonight, probably going to be late." "Don't wait up." Client thing. Right. The surveillance footage from this afternoon showed him and Tara booking the same hotel they'd used 3 times this month. Room 412. Their lucky room, according to her giggling text message that I'd intercepted through the company server. "No problem," I said sweetly. "I'll save you a plate." He barely heard me, already texting as he headed upstairs to change. I watched him go, then pulled up the surveillance app. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, cameras caught him leaving the office building. 15 minutes after that, Tara followed. Different exits. Amateur spycraft. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I was in my home office. Mark thought I was organizing closets or some other housewife nonsense when I got Patricia's email with the audit results attached. Mark Reynolds, $47,000 in questionable expenses over 6 months. Hotel charges on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons with no client meetings scheduled. Restaurant bills for 2 during times when his calendar showed no appointments. Flower purchases from boutique florists, none of which had been delivered to clients, all charged to the company card as business development or client entertainment. Fraudulent. Completely, undeniably fraudulent. Grounds for termination and potentially criminal charges. But I wasn't ready to fire him yet. That would be too quick, too clean. I wanted him to feel the walls closing in, wanted him panicked and desperate before the final blow. "Flag these for review," I typed back to Patricia. "Send warning email to Reynolds citing discrepancies. Schedule meeting for next week to discuss. Copy his supervisor." The email went out at 2:47 p.m. I watched through the camera as Mark read it at his desk, his face going from confused to pale to flushed red within seconds. His fingers flew over his keyboard, emailing Tara. I'd bet money on it. I pulled up her inbox through my admin access. There it was. "Tara, we have a problem. Audit flagged my expenses. They're asking questions about the hotels. Call me now." Her response came within minutes. "What? This could expose us. What do we do? I can't have this on my record." "Chill, babe. I'll smooth it over. Probably just routine. I'll charm Patricia, explain the charges. No way they can prove anything. Just stay cool." I leaned back in my chair, satisfaction warming my chest like good whiskey. He thought he could charm his way out. Had no idea Patricia reported directly to the mysterious owner who'd already seen every receipt, every lie, every fraudulent claim. He came home at 6, his confidence visibly shaken, tie askew, hair mussed from running his hands through it, his nervous tell. I met him at the door with a glass of bourbon, playing the supportive wife. "Rough day, honey?" I asked, all concern and sympathy. He took the drink, downed half of it in one gulp. "Yeah, some bullshit audit thing at work. HR's being crazy, questioning legitimate business expenses, like I haven't been bringing in millions for this company." "That sounds so stressful," I soothed, guiding him to the couch. "But you've always been so good at your job. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." "Exactly." He latched onto my validation like a lifeline. "It's obviously a mistake. Probably some new HR person trying to make their mark, questioning the top performers. I'll straighten it out next week." "Of course you will," I murmured, refilling his glass. "You always do." Inside, my thoughts ran cold and sharp. If you only knew that the HR person isn't new, that the audit isn't routine, that every charge you've claimed as business has been documented, analyzed, and will be used to destroy you. If you only knew that the company you think will protect you is mine, and I'm the one tightening the noose. That night, I pulled up the email exchanges between Mark and Tara through my secure access. Her panic was delicious. What if they fire us? What if they press charges? "Mark, I'm scared." "Baby, calm down. Trust me, I've got this. Nobody's getting fired, but maybe we should cool it for a bit. Just until this blows over." "Cool it? So you're abandoning me when things get tough? Real nice, Mark." "I'm not abandoning anyone, just being smart. Come on, you understand strategy." The cracks were already forming. Pressure applied, and the villains were turning skittish. This was only the beginning, and already their unity was fracturing. I fell asleep that night with the surveillance footage still playing on my laptop. Mark tossing and turning in our bed down the hall, probably rehearsing his explanations for Patricia. Tara at home, based on her panicked texts to friends about work drama. And me, the puppet master they dismissed as worthless, pulling every string. The audit was just the opening move, but it was enough to let them know the game had changed. They just didn't know who they were playing against yet. Soon, though. Very soon. The beauty of owning a company without anyone knowing is that you can orchestrate entire scenarios and nobody questions the coincidence. 3 days after the audit email, Margaret Chen, still serving as my public-facing CEO, sent out an announcement that made Mark groan audibly at the breakfast table. "Mandatory team-building retreat," he complained, reading the email on his phone while his eggs got cold. 3 days at some cabin resort with no cell service? Who the hell has time for trust falls and rope courses? I poured more coffee, hiding my smile. "Maybe it'll be good for morale. You always say the office is tense." "It's tense because people need to work, not sing Kumbaya in the woods." He shoved back from the table. "And the timing sucks. Right when I need to deal with this audit nonsense." "I'm sure it'll be fine," I said mildly. "When is it?" "Next week, Wednesday through Friday. Perfect." His sarcasm was thick enough to cut. What Mark didn't know was that I'd specifically chosen those dates. Wednesday through Friday gave me 3 full days when he'd be hours away, completely out of contact, unable to interfere or spin stories. 3 days for Sarah to work her legal magic without him catching wind of what was coming. The retreat was scheduled at Pinewood Mountain Resort, rustic but comfortable, surrounded by state forest with notoriously spotty cell coverage. I'd visited it myself last month to verify. The conference room had Wi-Fi, but personal devices were restricted to encourage present-moment team bonding. Translated, Mark would be trapped, cut off, and utterly unaware that his life was being dismantled back home. Sarah came over Tuesday evening while Mark was at another late client meeting. We sat in my home office with the door locked, divorce papers spread across the desk like battle plans. "You're sure about this timing?" Sarah asked, pen poised over the petition for dissolution of marriage. Once I file, there's no taking it back. I'm sure, I said, my voice steady. File Thursday morning. That gives him almost 2 days at the retreat before he even knows. By the time he gets back Friday evening, it'll be done. Served and official. Grounds? Irreconcilable differences for now. We'll add the infidelity evidence during discovery when it'll have maximum impact. I pulled up the surveillance footage on my laptop. Mark and Tara in the parking garage, her hand on his chest, his mouth on her neck. I want him to think it's amicable at first, then crush him with proof. Sarah's smile was sharp. You're diabolical. I love it. I learned from the best. I had. Sarah had taught me years ago that the best legal strategies were like chess, thinking 5 moves ahead while your opponent was still planning their next turn. While she prepared the paperwork, I turned to phase 2 of the plan. Reputation destruction. Subtle. Deniable. But effective. The Apex office gossip lived on Slack in a private channel called Hun Water Cooler that employees thought was secure. It wasn't. As owner, I had back-end access to every message, every channel, every private DM. I'd been watching the affair speculation grow for weeks. Now it was time to add fuel. I created a burner account, anonymous, untraceable, and dropped carefully worded breadcrumbs. Anyone else notice Mark R. and Tara W. are never in the office at the same time on Tuesday afternoons? Just saying, if you check the parking garage cameras, they leave together a lot. Not very professional for people who claim to be mentoring. Heard from someone in accounting that expense audits are happening. Wonder if certain people's client dinners will hold up to scrutiny. I posted them over several days, spacing them out to look organic. The channel exploded. People love drama, especially when it involved office affairs. Within 48 hours, Mark and Tara's relationship was the worst-kept secret in Apex Innovations. And the beautiful thing? They had no idea how widely known it had become. They thought they were so careful, so clever. Meanwhile, 200 employees were speculating about them over lunch. Wednesday morning, Mark left for the retreat grumbling about corporate nonsense and waste of time. He kissed my cheek absently, that performative affection that meant nothing, and drove off in his BMW. The one I'd helped him buy 2 years ago when his credit was still recovering from his startup failures. I watched him go, standing in the doorway like a good wife, waving, smiling. Then I closed the door and called Sarah. He's gone. File the papers. On it, she replied. This is going to be fun. With Mark safely at Pinewood, I turned my attention to the office. Through my eThorn account, I sent Margaret another email. Initiate performance reviews for all sales staff. Focus on metrics, lead generation, conversion rates, client retention. Compare individual performance against team averages. Report anomalies. This would expose Mark and Tara's number padding, the stolen leads, the inflated figures they'd used to make themselves look indispensable. Patricia would handle the reviews with her usual thoroughness, and by the time Mark returned from his retreat, there'd be another meeting scheduled, another set of questions he couldn't smoothly answer. I monitored the Aurelic water cooler channel obsessively. The gossip had evolved. So apparently the audit thing is real. My friend in HR says they're looking at fraud charges for some salespeople. Mark always seemed shady to me, too slick. Tara's definitely using other skills to get ahead, if you know what I mean. By Thursday afternoon, Sarah texted, "Papers filed. Process server will deliver Friday at 6 p.m. to your house. You sure you want to be there?" "I want to see his face," I typed back. "I've earned that." "You've earned everything that's coming to him. See you tomorrow." Thursday night, alone in the house with Lily, I felt something shift. The plan was in motion now, wheels turning, consequences building like thunderclouds on a summer horizon. Mark was up at Pinewood doing trust falls and team challenges, probably complaining the whole time, completely oblivious that back home, his wife, his worthless, dead-weight wife, was systematically destroying the foundation of his existence. I pulled up the performance review metrics Patricia had sent that afternoon. The numbers were damning. Mark's individual lead generation, 40% below team average. Conversion rate, average. Client retention, below average. But his claimed revenue, top 10% of the department. How? By taking credit for leads Tara stole from junior sales reps, by inflating numbers with projected deals that hadn't closed yet, by manipulating reports to look better than he was. He wasn't indispensable. He was mediocre and fraudulent. And now I had proof. Friday evening arrived with the weight of destiny. Mark would be home around 7. The process server was scheduled for 6. I made sure Lily was at her friend's house for a sleepover. She didn't need to witness what was coming. At 5:58 p.m., my phone rang. Tom Chen. "Ms. Thorne, just wanted to confirm, you need me tomorrow?" "Tomorrow?" I asked, confused. "The company announcement. Margaret scheduled it for Monday morning. All staff mandatory attendance. The big reveal." My heart stuttered. I'd forgotten I'd approved that last week. The moment when Thorne would finally step into the light, when I'd reveal myself to the entire company, including Mark. "Yes," I said slowly. "Yes, I'll be there. Have security ready. It might get complicated." "Understood, ma'am. We'll be prepared." At 6:07 p.m., the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw the process server, a woman in her 30s holding an envelope. I let her in, signed the confirmation, and watched her leave. At 6:52 p.m., Mark's BMW pulled into the driveway. The envelope sat on the kitchen table like a loaded gun, and I waited. Mark walked through the door looking exhausted, lugging his overnight bag like it weighed 100 pounds. 3 days of enforced team bonding had clearly drained him. Good. I needed him off balance for what came next. "Welcome home," I said from the kitchen, voice carefully neutral. "How was the retreat?" "Torture," he muttered, dropping his bag in the hallway. 3 days of trust exercises and authentic communication workshops when I should have been working, and the cell service was non-existent. I probably have 100 emails to catch up on. He headed toward the kitchen, then stopped dead when he saw the envelope on the table. "What's this?" "I think you should open it," I said quietly. He picked it up, frowning. I watched his face as he read, confusion melting into shock, melting into fury, the petition for dissolution of marriage, legal terms that added up to one simple truth. I was divorcing him. "What the hell, Emily?" He looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "Is this a joke?" "No joke. I want a divorce." "Why? What did I do?" The audacity of the question almost made me laugh. What did he do? "We've grown apart," I said, sticking to the script Sarah and I had rehearsed. "Keep it vague. Don't mention the affair yet. Let him think it's amicable." "I think it's best if we go our separate ways." "Grown apart?" He threw the papers down on the table. "That's it? After 8 years, you just decide we're done?" "It's been coming for a while, Mark. You know it has." He ran his hands through his hair, that nervous gesture again. "This is crazy. We can fix this. Counseling or whatever. You can't just give up." "I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality." I kept my voice calm, level. Don't let him see the rage underneath. Not yet. "Is there someone else?" His eyes narrowed with suspicion. The irony of that question, coming from him, of all people, was almost too much, but I held steady. "No, this isn't about someone else. It's about us not working anymore." He paced the kitchen, agitated. "The timing is shit, Em. I've got this audit thing at work, and now you spring this on me? What am I supposed to do?" "Deal with your own problems for once," I said, and let some steel creep into my voice. "I'm not your mother or your maid. Figure it out." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. This wasn't the Emily he knew, the one who smoothed everything over, who supported him unconditionally, who never pushed back. But that Emily was gone, burned away by betrayal. "Fine," he said finally, voice cold, "if that's what you want. But don't expect me to make this easy. We'll split everything 50-50, and I'm getting a lawyer." "You should do that," I agreed. "Sarah Michaels is representing me." His eyes widened. "Sarah? Your friend Sarah? She's a shark." "Yes, she is." I allowed myself a small smile. "So you might want to find someone equally competent." He grabbed his bag and stomped upstairs. I heard the guest bedroom door slam. Good. That's where he'd be staying from now on. Our marriage bed was done hosting a cheater. My phone buzzed. Sarah texting, "How'd he take it?" Shocked and angry. Perfect. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. She had no idea how interesting it would get. Monday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of a new beginning. Mark had spent the weekend avoiding me, leaving the house early and coming back late, probably crying on Tara's shoulder about his horrible wife who'd blindsided him with divorce papers. Let him. It would make what happened next even sweeter. I dressed carefully that morning after Mark left for work. Black slacks, cream silk blouse, understated jewelry. Professional, but not flashy. I needed to look like the CEO I was, not the housewife he thought I'd been. At 10 a.m., Margaret's announcement went out to the entire company. Mandatory all-staff meeting at 2 p.m. The founder and owner, E. Thorne, will be addressing the company. Attendance is required. I watched Mark's reaction through the office camera. He barely looked up from his computer, dismissing it as unimportant. Just another corporate obligation cutting into his workday. But at 1:30 p.m., another email landed. This one from Patricia Mills. "Mark Reynolds, please report to HR at 3:30 p.m. regarding performance review findings. Bring your supervisor. This is mandatory." I watched the color drain from his face as he read it. His fingers flew across his keyboard, emailing Tara again, no doubt. I pulled up her inbox. They scheduled a performance review for me too, 3:30 p.m. "Mark, what is happening?" His response, "No idea. Just stick to the story. We're team players. We collaborate. Nothing wrong with sharing leads. It's all about team success, right?" Right. Team success. But I could see her uncertainty even through text. The performance metrics Patricia had compiled were devastating. Not only were Mark's individual numbers mediocre, but the analysis showed a pattern. Junior sales reps reporting leads that mysteriously disappeared from the system, only to show up later credited to Mark or Tara. Email trails of those junior reps complaining to supervisors about stolen opportunities. Documented proof of systematic credit theft. It wasn't just fraud anymore. It was theft from their own colleagues. People trying to build careers. Young employees grinding away, only to have their work stolen by two people too lazy or incompetent to generate their own success. At 1:45 p.m., I texted Tom, "I'm coming in through the executive entrance. Have someone meet me." "Already waiting, Ms. Thorne." I drove to Apex headquarters with my hands steady on the wheel, even though my heart was racing. This was it, the moment of revelation, the beginning of the end for Mark's carefully constructed lies. Tom met me at the private entrance, his bulk reassuring. "Everyone's gathering in the main auditorium. Margaret's doing pre-show, warming them up. You ready for this?" "More ready than I've ever been," I said. He escorted me to the private office adjacent to the auditorium, Margaret's space. She was there, reviewing notes, and looked up when I entered. "Emily," she said warmly, standing to hug me. "Today's the day. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to step out of the shadows and into a firestorm." "You've earned this moment." She squeezed my hands. "Your company, your vision. Time to claim it publicly." At 2 p.m. exactly, I heard the auditorium filling. Voices, footsteps, the scrape of chairs. Through the one-way glass, I could see them gathering. 200 employees, all speculating about who E. Thorne was. Some thought it was a man, naturally. Some thought it was a consortium of investors. A few of the smarter ones had whispered theories about it being someone already in the company. None of them guessed it was the wife of their mediocre sales guy. None of them except the man himself, who was about to find out that the worthless woman he'd discarded was actually the architect of his entire world. I saw Mark enter, settling into a seat near the middle, close enough to see, far enough to escape if needed. Tara sat several rows behind him. They weren't even sitting together, probably trying to maintain appearances after the gossip had spread. Margaret stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today marks a significant moment in Apex's history. For 5 years, our founder has preferred to operate behind the scenes, letting the work speak for itself. But today, that changes. Today, you'll finally meet the person who built this company from nothing into what it is now. She paused for dramatic effect. Please welcome E. Thorne. The applause started, polite and expectant, and I walked through the side door onto that stage, heels clicking on polished wood, and watched 200 faces turn toward me. Watch confusion ripple through the crowd. Watch Mark's face go from curious to shocked to absolutely bloodless in the span of 3 seconds, and I smiled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I reveal that moment, the crescendo that this whole symphony was building toward, I need to tell you about the person who mattered most in all of this, the innocent who needed protecting no matter what happened between Mark and me, Lily. My niece had come to us during the worst period of her life. 6 months ago, her parents, my younger sister Rachel and her husband David, had taken their boat out for a weekend trip on Lake Superior. They were experienced sailors, careful people. But a storm came up fast, the kind that turns calm water into a death trap in minutes. Their boat capsized. Neither of them made it back. At 12 years old, Lily lost everything in one night. I'd been named her guardian in Rachel's will. Mark and I were the only family she had left, our parents gone. David's parents too elderly to care for an active preteen. So she moved into our guest room with her boxes of belongings and her grief that was too big for her small body. At first, Mark had been decent about it, awkward but trying. "Hey, kiddo," he'd say, ruffling her hair. "Need anything?" He wasn't a natural with children, but he made an effort. That lasted about 3 weeks. Then Lily became an inconvenience, a reminder that life wasn't just about him. She needed help with homework, time he could be spending on work. She needed emotional support, energy he didn't want to expend. She needed presence, something he'd stopped giving even to me. I first heard him complain about her to Tara during one of their video calls, before I knew Tara's name or face. I'd been passing by his office when I heard him say, "The kid's always underfoot, always needing something. I didn't sign up for instant parenthood, you know." Tara's response had been a giggle. "Sounds rough, babe. Thank God we don't have those complications." Those complications. That's what my orphaned niece was to them. The real breaking point came 3 weeks before the divorce papers, during one of the dinners where I was still trying to maintain the illusion of family. Lily had been excited about a school project, something about ecosystems, and kept trying to show Mark her research. "Uncle Mark, look at this cool fact about decomposers. Did you know—" "Not now, Lily," he'd said, not looking up from his phone. Texting Tara, I'd realized later. "But I just wanted to show you—" "I said not now!" He'd snapped it sharp enough that Lily flinched, her enthusiasm crumbling into hurt. She'd left the table quietly, taking her half-eaten dinner upstairs. I'd found her an hour later, crying into her pillow, surrounded by the photographs of her parents that she kept on her nightstand. "He hates me," she'd whispered. "Uncle Mark thinks I'm annoying. I heard him say it last week on the phone. He said having me here ruins everything." My heart had shattered into new pieces I didn't know existed. I'd held her, this child who'd already survived so much loss, and made a promise I intended to keep. "Lily, listen to me. You are not annoying. You are wonderful and smart and kind, and anyone who doesn't see that is blind. And no matter what happens, you're safe here. I will always, always protect you. Do you understand?" She'd nodded against my shoulder, her tears soaking into my shirt. That night, after she'd finally fallen asleep, I'd gone to my home office and updated my will. If anything happened to me, Lily would be provided for. Trust funds, guardianship arranged with Sarah, everything handled. And I'd added a clause to the divorce paperwork. Lily stays with me. Full custody. Non-negotiable. Mark could walk away clean from the marriage, but not from the responsibility of a child who'd already lost too much. Sarah had reviewed it with her usual thoroughness. "You sure you want sole custody? Most courts prefer shared arrangement when possible. Mark doesn't want her, Sarah. He sees her as a burden. I'm not subjecting her to visitation with someone who resents her existence. She's been through enough trauma. Okay, then we'll document his neglect, his hostility. Build a case that sole custody is in her best interest. It won't be hard. The man barely acknowledges she exists. Now, as the divorce proceedings began and the revenge plan unfolded, every decision I made was filtered through one question. How does this protect Lily? The morning after Mark got the divorce papers, Lily had found me in the kitchen making pancakes. She'd looked worried, her brown eyes too old for a 12-year-old. Aunt Em, are you divorcing Uncle Mark because of me? Because I'm here? I'd set down the spatula and pulled her into a fierce hug. No, sweetie, no. This has nothing to do with you. Uncle Mark and I have grown-up problems that started long before you came to live with us. You understand? But where will I go if you guys split up? You're staying with me. Always. That's not even a question. Her relief had been palpable, her thin body relaxing against mine. Promise? I promise. You're stuck with me, kiddo, through everything. Over the following weeks, as Mark moved into the guest room and the tension in the house became impossible to ignore, I'd worked hard to keep Lily's life stable. Normal breakfast routines, help with homework every night, movie nights on Fridays with popcorn and her choice of film. Her friends could still come over for sleepovers. I drove her to soccer practice and dance class and never missed a school event. She needed to know that even though her world had shattered once, it wouldn't shatter again. The day before the big reveal at Apex, Lily and I were baking cookies together, her mom's recipe that I'd found in Rachel's old cookbook. Lily was measuring flour carefully, her tongue poking out in concentration. Aunt Em? She said, not looking up. Can I ask you something? Always. Uncle Mark. Is he a bad person? The question caught me off guard. I thought carefully about how to answer. Lily had been through enough. She didn't need me poisoning her against someone she'd once trusted. But she also deserved honesty. I think, I said slowly, that Uncle Mark lost his way. He made choices that hurt people, including you and me. That doesn't make him all bad, but it does mean he's not someone we can count on right now. Because he cheated on you with that woman from his work. I froze. How did you... I'm 12, not stupid. I heard him on the phone. And you've been sad for a long time, even when you smile. She looked up at me then, those knowing eyes seeing too much. You deserve better, Aunt Em. Out of the mouths of babes. Thank you, sweetie. You know what? So do you. You deserve people who see how special you are. She smiled, small, but genuine. I'm glad I get to stay with you. Me too, Lily, me too. That night, I'd updated the paperwork one final time. Not just custody arrangements, also life insurance policies, college funds, everything Lily would need if something went wrong during the confrontation ahead. Because even though I was confident in my plan, I wasn't reckless. Mark was about to lose everything, and desperate people do desperate things. I needed Lily protected no matter what happened. The next morning, as I prepared to walk onto that stage and reveal myself to the entire company, I'd sent Lily to stay with Sarah for the day. Aunt Em has a big work thing, I'd told her. Might run late. You okay hanging out with Aunt Sarah? Can we get pizza? She'd asked hopefully. Absolutely, extra cheese. She'd hugged me tight before leaving. Good luck with your work thing. If she only knew her work thing aunt was about to publicly destroy her uncle's career and reputation in front of 200 people. But some lessons needed to be taught, and some innocence needed to be protected from the fallout. As I stood backstage at Apex, waiting for Margaret to introduce me, I thought about Lily's question. Is Uncle Mark a bad person? No, but he'd done bad things, cruel things. To me, to Lily, to his colleagues, to everyone who'd trusted him. And now he was going to learn what happens when you underestimate the woman you called worthless while neglecting the child who needed you. Some people need to be saved. Others need to be shown the door. Today I was doing both. Before the big reveal, before I stepped into that auditorium and detonated Mark's entire existence, there was one more piece to put in place, one more pressure point to hit that would leave him vulnerable and off balance for what came next: his money. 3 days after Mark received the divorce papers, I met with Sarah at her downtown office. She'd pulled our financial records, spread them across her conference table like a crime scene investigation. "Okay," she said, tapping a stack of bank statements. "You have the joint accounts, his personal account, and the credit cards. Legally, since you filed, we can freeze the joint accounts pending asset division. That's standard divorce procedure." "How fast can you do it?" "I can file the request tomorrow. Banks usually comply within 48 hours. Why? What are you planning?" I smiled, pulling up my laptop to show her the surveillance footage from last week. Mark and Tara at their usual hotel. Mark's credit card, our joint card, being handed to the front desk. Champagne ordered to the room. Dinner for 2 at the hotel restaurant. All charged to the card I'd paid for with my Apex salary. "He's been funding his affair with our money," I said. "I want him cut off. No more fancy hotels, no more expensive dinners trying to keep Tara interested. I want him financially squeezed until he feels every penny." Sarah's grin was predatory. "You know what? The banks might even expedite this as a fraud concern. Unauthorized use of joint funds for extramarital affairs. Let me make some calls." She wasn't kidding. By Thursday afternoon, both joint accounts were frozen. Our primary checking, the one with about $45,000 that we used for everything, locked down pending divorce proceedings. The joint credit card declined. I watched it happen in real time through my phone. Mark tried to buy lunch at a restaurant near Apex. Declined. Tried to gas up his BMW. Declined. Tried to pull cash from an ATM. Account frozen. He called me around 2 p.m., voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Emily, what the hell? My cards aren't working." "Did you freeze the accounts?" "My lawyer did," I said calmly. "Standard divorce procedure. All joint assets are frozen until we reach a settlement." "I need access to money. How am I supposed to live?" "You have your salary, don't you? That deposits to your personal account every 2 weeks. Use that." "My next paycheck isn't for another week. What am I supposed to do until then?" "I guess you'll figure it out," I said, and there was steel in my voice now. "Like you said, Mark, some of us need to learn about sacrifice, contribution, not being dead weight." Silence on the other end. Then, "You're doing this on purpose, punishing me." "I'm following legal advice, but if you're feeling punished, maybe that's your conscience talking." He hung up without another word. The beautiful thing about cutting off Mark's money was watching the ripple effects. That very evening, he'd apparently had plans with Tara. I knew this because I'd intercepted his text that morning. "Dinner tonight? That Italian place you love?" But without access to the joint accounts or credit cards, he couldn't afford it. The Italian place was expensive, the kind where entrees started at $60. His personal account had maybe $400 in it. His own salary went primarily to his car payment, student loans, and the gym membership he never used. I watched their text exchange devolve through my company server access. Mark: "Hey babe, need to rain check dinner tonight. Work stuff came up." Tara: "Again? This is the 3rd time this week you've canceled." Mark: I know. Things are crazy. Divorce stuff. But I promise we'll do something nice soon." Tara: "Right, soon. That's what you always say lately. You're losing your edge, Mark. The guy I started dating didn't make excuses." Mark: "I'm not making excuses. You know I'm dealing with a lot right now." Tara: "Maybe too much. I didn't sign up for broke and stressed. Fix this or I'm out." And there it was, the rat showing her true colors. Tara had been interested in successful, confident Mark, the guy with the expense account and the VP ambitions, but stressed, financially squeezed Mark, the one under HR investigation and audit scrutiny, that Mark was suddenly less appealing. I watched their relationship crack in real time, each text message another fracture in whatever bond had held them together. It was almost sad. Almost. Mark came home that night looking haggard. He'd clearly tried to hit an ATM again. I could see the receipt crumpled in his pocket and been denied. His frustration filled the house like toxic gas. "This is insane, Emily," he said, cornering me in the kitchen. "You can't just cut me off from everything. That's my money, too. I earned it." I looked at him evenly, thinking about all the dinners I'd made, all the laundry I'd done, all the emotional labor of keeping our household running while he focused on his career, while he focused on Tara. Funny how it's our money when you want access, but I was just a worthless homemaker contributing nothing. "Which is it, Mark?" His face flushed red. "That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is using marital funds to wine and dine your mistress. But here we are." "I don't have a mistress." "Sure you don't." I kept my voice carefully neutral, even though internally I was screaming. Let him think I was just guessing. Let him underestimate what I knew. Either way, the accounts stay frozen until we settle. "Talk to your lawyer about it." "I can't even afford a lawyer." The admission burst out of him, desperate and raw. "Do you understand that? I'm broke until next paycheck, and even then it's not enough to pay rent if I have to move out." Good. Let him feel what precarity was like, what vulnerability felt like, what it felt like to be financially dependent and dismissed. "Then maybe," I said quietly, "you should have thought about that before you threw away our marriage." He stared at me like he'd never seen me before, and maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the version of me he wanted to see, the quiet, accommodating wife who never pushed back, who never demanded more than scraps of his attention. That woman was gone. Over the next week, I watched Mark scramble. He borrowed money from friends. I knew because I saw the Venmo notifications on his phone when he left it unattended. Small amounts. $50 here, $100 there. Gas money, lunch money. The kind of begging that eats away at a man's pride. And his relationship with Tara? Deteriorating rapidly. Tara. "So we're not even going out anymore? I'm supposed to just sit around waiting for you to get your life together?" Mark. "Baby, please, give me a few more weeks. This'll blow over." Tara. "Weeks? I don't have weeks. Derek from business development asked me out yesterday. He actually has his shit together." Mark. "Derek, that guy's a tool. You're not seriously considering..." Tara. "I'm considering someone who can actually take me out for a nice dinner without having a meltdown about frozen bank accounts. Maybe you should focus on your divorce instead of me." That one hit him hard. I saw him that evening sitting alone in the guest room staring at his phone, looking smaller somehow, diminished. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for him. This was the man I'd loved once, the man I'd planned a life with. Watching him crumble was both satisfying and heartbreaking in a way I hadn't expected. But then I remembered. Worthless. Dead weight. Lucky I stick around. And the sympathy evaporated like morning mist. He'd made his choices, betrayed me systematically while I supported him through every failure, used marital funds to cheat, dismissed Lily as an inconvenience, stolen credit at work, lied to HR, lied to me, lied to everyone. This wasn't cruelty on my part. This was consequences. Natural, logical consequences for someone who'd burned every bridge while assuming there'd always be another one waiting. The financial pressure was just one thread in the web, but combined with the audit, the performance reviews, the gossip, Tara's growing distance, it was all building to a perfect storm that Mark couldn't see coming. Because he still thought he was in control, still thought he could charm his way out, still thought his worthless wife was just throwing a tantrum that would blow over. He had no idea that I'd already scheduled the company-wide meeting, that in 3 days every employee at Apex would know exactly who owned the company they worked for, and that the VP position he was chasing so desperately, I'd already decided who was getting it. Spoiler. It wasn't him. If you've ever watched a ship sink, you know the ugliest part isn't the initial breach. It's the scramble afterward. People abandoning loyalty, clawing over each other to reach the lifeboats. That's what happened with Mark and Tara. The financial pressure had cracked their foundation. Now I just needed to watch it crumble completely. It started 5 days before the big reveal. Tom had been documenting everything through Apex's security systems, not just the parking garage meetings and supply closet encounters, but also their behavior in the office, the subtle touches, the lingering looks. The way Tara would perch on Mark's desk during casual conversations that lasted 40 minutes. But surveillance also caught something else, Tara's desperation as Mark's star fell. I watched through the camera feed as she started diversifying. That's the polite word for it. Flirting aggressively with other male executives, laughing just a bit too loud at weak jokes from Derek in business development, accidentally bumping into James from product management, touching his arm while apologizing, strategic positioning in the break room when the senior VPs grabbed coffee. She was hedging her bets, preparing to jump ship before Mark's vessel went completely under. Mark noticed, too. I saw it happen in real time. He'd been walking down the hallway toward the conference room when he spotted Tara through the glass wall. She was in there with Derek, supposedly reviewing quarterly projections, but her body language told a different story. Leaning in, hair flip. That same predatory smile she'd used on Mark. His face went from confused to angry in seconds. He didn't interrupt, probably smart, given HR was already watching him. But the moment Tara left the conference room, he cornered her by the elevators. I pulled up the audio feed. Apex's surveillance system had excellent mics. What was that about? Mark's voice was tight, controlled. You and Derek looked pretty cozy. Tara's laugh was dismissive. We were working, Mark. Remember work? That thing we're supposed to be doing? You were flirting with him. So what if I was? Last I checked, you're married, and getting divorced, and broke, and under investigation. Did I miss anything? The venom in her voice made me smile. This was better than I'd hoped. I'm handling it, Mark said. The audit will clear. The performance review is just bureaucracy. And the divorce. Emily's being unreasonable, but it'll settle. Right. Just like the money thing will settle. And the gossip will settle. And your reputation will settle. Tara pressed the elevator button with more force than necessary. Mark, be honest with yourself. You're not the hot prospect anymore. You're the guy everyone's whispering about. The one HR is building a case against. That's not a good look. I thought you cared about me, about us. She turned to face him fully then, and her expression was cold. Pure calculation. I cared about successful Mark, confident Mark, the guy who promised me we'd both climb to the top. But you're not climbing anymore, you're sinking, and I'm not going down with the ship. The elevator dinged. She stepped in without looking back. Mark stood there, frozen, while the doors slid shut between them. I watched him process it. The realization that Tara had never actually loved him. That she'd been using him the same way he'd used me, for convenience, for advancement, for what he could provide. And now that he couldn't provide anything, she was done. Karma, I thought, had a beautiful sense of poetry. That evening, Mark tried to salvage things via email. I read his messages through my back-end access. Mark, Tara, can we talk? I know things are rough right now, but we got through this together. Remember what we have. No response for 3 hours. Then, Tara. What we had. Past tense. Look, you're a nice guy, but I need to focus on my own career right now. This thing with us, it's become a liability. I'm sure you understand. Mark. A liability? After everything? After I risked my marriage for you? Tara. Nobody asked you to risk anything. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Don't contact me again outside of professional matters. His next message was desperate. Mark. So that's it? After all those nights, all those promises, you said you loved me. Tara. I said a lot of things. People say things. Doesn't mean they're binding contracts. Move on, Mark, I have. And then, this was the beautiful part. She blocked him. On email, on Slack, on her personal phone. Complete shutdown. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But then Tom sent me a compilation video. Every encounter between Mark and Tara over the past 4 months edited into a devastating highlight reel. The parking garage kisses, the supply closet, the hotel surveillance from their favorite spot, room 412, where they'd been sloppy enough to check in during hours that could be cross-referenced with work schedules. Timestamps on everything. "Thought you might need this for legal," Tom's message read. "Also caught Tara with Derek yesterday. Seems she's moved on quickly." I saved the file with care. Evidence, irrefutable, time-stamped, comprehensive evidence of systematic betrayal. That night, Mark came home looking like he'd aged 5 years. He poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, my whiskey from the bottle I kept for guests, and sat alone in the living room. I found him there an hour later, staring at nothing. "You okay?" I asked, because I was still playing the role, still the concerned wife, even though we both knew the marriage was over. "She left me," he said, voice hollow. "Tara said I'm a liability." "I'm sorry," I lied. "No, you're not." He looked at me then, and there was something broken in his eyes. "You knew, didn't you? About us?" I could have denied it. Kept playing dumb, but what was the point? I knew. How long? Long enough. He nodded slowly, like pieces were finally clicking together. "The divorce. The frozen accounts. You're punishing me." "No, Mark. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." "She said I was worthless too, you know." His laugh was bitter. "Different words, but same meaning. Guess that makes 2 of us who think I'm garbage." "You're not garbage," I said, and part of me meant it. "But you made terrible choices, hurt people who didn't deserve it, and now you're facing consequences. Because of you." "Because of you," I corrected. "You chose to have an affair, to steal credit at work, to lie and cheat and betray everyone around you. I'm just no longer protecting you from your own actions." He had nothing to say to that. What could he say? I left him there with his whiskey and his regrets and went upstairs to check my email. Sarah had sent the final divorce documents ready for court filing. Tom had sent additional surveillance footage. Tara now openly flirting with Derek, Mark watching from across the office with visible anguish, and Margaret had sent the agenda for Monday's company meeting. 2 p.m. Introduction, 2:10 p.m. E. Thorne identity reveal, 2:20 p.m. Company direction announcement, 2:30 p.m. HR matters requiring immediate attention, 2:45 p.m. Q&A under HR matters requiring immediate attention. She'd noted performance review outcomes, audit findings, employee conduct violations. Everything was converging. The rat had abandoned ship. The villains had turned on each other. The evidence was compiled and devastating. The stage was set. All that remained was the final act. 3 days before the company-wide meeting, I made my anonymous move. Not as Emily Reynolds' loving wife, not even as E. Thorne, mysterious owner, but as a concerned employee who'd witnessed something wrong and couldn't stay silent. I created a new email account, completely untraceable, using secure protocols and a VPN that routed through 3 countries. The message was simple, direct, and loaded with attached evidence. To Patricia Mills, Director of Human Resources subject, formal complaint, employee misconduct. Dear Ms. Mills, I am writing to report serious misconduct involving 2 members of the sales team, Mark Reynolds and Tara Wilkins. I am submitting this anonymously due to fear of professional retaliation, but the evidence speaks for itself. Attached you will find security footage showing inappropriate workplace behavior, email exchanges confirming an ongoing affair, documentation of credit theft from junior sales representatives, hotel surveillance from times cross-referenced with fraudulent expense reports, Slack messages showing awareness of their behavior among staff. This conduct violates multiple company policies, creates a hostile work environment for junior employees whose work has been stolen, and represents misuse of company resources. Please investigate immediately. A concerned employee. I hit send at 6:47 a.m. on a Friday morning, knowing Patricia would see it first thing when she arrived at the office. Then I sat back and waited for the bomb to detonate. It took 47 minutes. Patricia's response email, which I saw through my Thorn admin access, went to Margaret. We have a serious situation. Anonymous whistleblower with substantial evidence of employee misconduct. Need to convene emergency HR review. Can you free up your afternoon? Margaret's reply, clear my schedule. This is priority 1. By noon, an official investigation had been launched. Patricia assembled a review committee, herself, Margaret, and Tom from security, since the evidence included surveillance footage. They spent 3 hours in the conference room, reviewing every piece of evidence I'd submitted. I watched through the conference room camera as Patricia's expression went from concerned to disgusted, as Margaret's jaw tightened, as Tom pointed out timestamps and cross-references that made the misconduct irrefutable. This is grounds for immediate termination, Patricia said, her voice clear even through the audio feed. Fraud, misuse of company resources, hostile work environment through credit theft, any one of these would be fireable. Altogether, it's a liability nightmare. We need to be careful about the affair angle, Margaret cautioned. Workplace relationships aren't automatically prohibited, but using company resources to facilitate one, hotel bookings on company cards, conducting it during work hours in company facilities, that crosses lines. And the credit theft is the real issue, Tom added. Junior employees filed complaints. This wasn't just poor performance. This was systematic stealing of other people's work. That's legally actionable. Patricia nodded. I'm recommending immediate suspension pending full investigation, both Reynolds and Wilkins. They should be off premises by end of day. At 3:15 p.m., Mark's desk phone rang. I watched him answer it, face going pale as Patricia's assistant summoned him to HR immediately. He texted Tara. Old habits die hard, even though she'd blocked him everywhere else. Did you get called to HR? No response. She'd already been summoned separately. Mark walked to HR like a man heading to his execution. Through the cameras, I watched him sit in Patricia's office, watched her lay out the evidence, watched him try to explain, to deflect, to minimize. These hotel charges were legitimate client entertainment. We contacted the hotels, Mr. Reynolds. There were no clients registered, just you and Ms. Wilkins. The lead theft allegations are exaggerated. We operate as a team. We have emails from 5 different junior representatives documenting how their leads disappeared from the system and reappeared credited to you. That's not teamwork, that's theft. I don't understand why this is happening. Who complained? That's confidential. What's not confidential is that you're suspended effective immediately. Pending the outcome of our investigation, which includes possible criminal fraud charges, you're to clear your desk and leave the premises. Your access credentials will be deactivated within the hour. Mark stumbled out of Patricia's office looking gutted. I watched him pack his desk in a daze, personal items shoved into a cardboard box, colleagues whispering as he passed, the walk of shame every office worker dreads. Tara's meeting went differently. I'd been right about her, she cracked under pressure. This is all Mark's idea, I heard her saying, her voice pitched high with panic. He pressured me into everything, the affair, the credit theft, all of it. He said it would help both our careers, but it was mostly him. I was scared to say no. He's senior to me. Patricia's voice was flat, unimpressed. Ms. Wilkins, we have evidence of you initiating contact in multiple instances, emails where you suggest the hotels, security footage of you leading him to the supply closet. This wasn't harassment. This was mutual misconduct. But you're suspended as well. Same terms. Clear your desk and leave. So Tara played the victim card and still lost. Beautiful. Both of them were escorted out by security, Tom making sure they left separately, didn't communicate, didn't coordinate stories. Mark's face was ashen. Tara's was furious, tears of rage rather than remorse tracking through her makeup. The office gossip channels exploded. Mark and Tara just got suspended. I knew it. I knew something was up with them. Heard it was fraud, like actual criminal fraud. Someone said they were stealing leads from the junior team. That's so messed up. Both of them walked out with boxes, career over. Mark came home at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, which should have been the middle of his workday. I was in the kitchen with Lily, helping her with algebra homework, when we heard his car in the driveway. He walked in carrying a cardboard box, his face a mask of devastation and fury. "What happened?" I asked, playing innocent even though I knew every detail. "I got suspended." His voice was hollow. "Some anonymous complaint. Lies about fraud and other stuff. They suspended Tara, too. It's all falling apart, Em. Everything's falling apart." Lily looked between us, confused and worried. I caught her eye and shook my head slightly. "Not now, we'll talk later." "Maybe you should call a lawyer," I suggested carefully. "With what money?" He laughed, bitter and broken. "I'm suspended, which means no paycheck. The accounts are frozen. I'm completely screwed." "You could call your parents." "And tell them what? That I got suspended for fraud? That I'm getting divorced? That my mistress dumped me?" The admission burst out raw and unfiltered. He seemed to realize what he'd said, glancing at Lily. "Kid, go upstairs." "No," I said firmly. "Lily stays. You're the one who needs to leave. Go to the guest room. We'll talk when you're calmer." He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression stopped him. Maybe he finally saw that I wasn't the pushover wife anymore. Maybe he was just too tired to fight. He left. The box of his desk belongings sat on the kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Lily looked at me with those two knowing eyes. "Is Uncle Mark in trouble?" "Yes," I said, because she deserved honesty. "He made bad choices and now he's facing consequences." "Good," she said simply. "He was mean to you and to me." Out of the mouths of babes. That evening, Sarah called. "Em, holy shit, did you see the HR stuff?" "I may have had something to do with that." "You? The whistleblower email? That was you?" "Anonymously, completely anonymously. But yes, I had the evidence. It needed to be submitted." Her laugh was delighted. "You're terrifying. I love it." "So now he's suspended and under investigation?" "Both of them are. And the company meeting is Monday, where I reveal myself as owner in front of everyone, including suspended employees who've been invited back for closure. This is the most beautiful revenge plot I've ever witnessed. When do you want to move forward with the divorce settlement?" "Let's wait until after Monday, after he's seen exactly who I am and what he threw away. Then we can discuss terms." "Fair, though I doubt he'll have much bargaining power at that point." "That's the idea." After we hung up, I sat in my home office looking at the evidence compilation Tom had sent. Every moment of Mark's betrayal, documented and undeniable. The whistleblower complaint had triggered the investigation, but the evidence, the beautiful, irrefutable evidence, would ensure the consequences stuck. Small victory? No. This was a major blow. Mark was suspended under investigation, facing possible fraud charges, abandoned by his mistress, financially squeezed, and completely unaware that the worst was yet to come. Monday's revelation would finish what the whistleblower started, and I would be there to watch him realize exactly what he'd lost. Monday morning arrived with the weight of destiny. I stood backstage in Margaret's office, adjusting my navy power suit one final time. The fabric was expensive, Italian wool, perfectly tailored. I'd bought it 3 years ago for an investor meeting where I'd needed to project absolute authority. Today, it would serve that purpose again. Through the one-way glass, I watched the auditorium fill, 200 employees filing into rows, their voices creating a buzz of speculation. Who was E. Thorne? The mystery that had defined Apex Innovations for 5 years was about to be solved. Tom stood beside me, his bulk reassuring. "You ready for this, Miss Thorne?" "I've been ready for 5 years," I said. "I just didn't know it would happen like this." "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "Reynolds is a fool. Anyone who underestimates you deserves what's coming." Through the glass, I spotted Mark entering. He'd been instructed to attend despite his suspension, for closure and company transparency regarding recent HR matters. He looked terrible, Unshaven, tie-crooked, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. He took a seat in the third row, center, close enough to see everything, far enough to feel insignificant. Tara entered separately, escorted by HR. They'd been told to sit apart. She wore a red dress, power color, or maybe desperation. Her eyes scanned the room nervously, landing on Mark for just a moment before skittering away. No solidarity between co-conspirators anymore, just two people drowning separately. Margaret stepped onto the stage, and the room quieted. She looked elegant in charcoal gray, her presence commanding respect. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today marks a pivotal moment in Apex's history." Her voice carried across the auditorium, professional and warm. "For 5 years, our founder has preferred to lead from behind the scenes, trusting us to execute the vision while maintaining a degree of separation. But given recent events, and given the company's growth, it's time for that to change." She paused, letting anticipation build. I could see people leaning forward, phones out, probably live streaming to colleagues who couldn't attend. "Please welcome the founder and owner of Apex Innovations, E. Thorne." I stepped through the side door onto that stage, heels clicking against polished wood with the rhythm of inevitability. The first few people to recognize me gasped. Literally gasped, the sound rippling through the crowd like a wave. Confusion spread across faces. Who is this woman? Why does she look familiar? Then someone in the tech department shouted, "That's Mark Reynolds' wife." More gasps, heads turning, people looking between me and Mark, whose face had gone from tired to absolutely bloodless. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I watched him process it in stages: denial, confusion, horror, and finally, devastating comprehension. I took the microphone from Margaret, my hand steady despite my racing heart. "Good afternoon," I said, and my voice didn't shake. 5 years of hiding had ended in this moment. "My name is Emily Thorne. Some of you know me as Emily Reynolds. I am the founder, owner, and as of today, the public CEO of Apex Innovations." The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that auditorium. For those who don't know my story, let me illuminate it. I pressed the remote, and the screen behind me lit up with Apex's founding documents. My signature, E. Thorne, the date, 5 years ago. I founded this company with a $350,000 investment from my inheritance. I built it from 5 employees in a shared office space to what we are today: 200 employees, $47 million in annual revenue, Fortune 500 clients. I watched Mark's face. He'd gone gray, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair like they were the only things keeping him upright. I chose to operate anonymously for personal reasons, but anonymity also gave me perspective. I could see how this company truly functioned. I could see who contributed value. I gestured to the employees who'd built Apex with genuine effort and who merely performed it. Another click. The screen changed to expense reports. Mark's name highlighted. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, fraudulent claims totaling $47,000. Recently, an investigation uncovered systematic fraud in our sales department. Company resources misused for personal affairs. Credit stolen from junior employees trying to build their careers. Another click. Emails between Mark and Tara, the suggestive ones, carefully selected to show intent without being explicit. Privacy blurred faces and hotel surveillance footage, but timestamps that corresponded perfectly with Mark's expense reports. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. People were turning to look at Mark, at Tara, back to me, the story writing itself in their minds. This behavior violates every value Apex stands for: trust, integrity, respect for colleagues. More than that, it represents a fundamental betrayal of the people who work honestly every day. Tara stood suddenly, her face flushed with rage and humiliation. "This is insane. You can't do this. This is a setup. She's his wife, for God's sake. She's bitter about the divorce." I looked at her, and my voice dropped to ice. "Ms. Wilkins, I am not speaking to you as Mark's wife. I am speaking as your employer, the owner of this company, and you are fired, effective immediately. For fraud, misuse of company resources, and systematic theft of work product from junior colleagues. She opened her mouth to protest, but Tom was already moving. He and another security guard flanked her, professional but firm. You can't. This isn't legal. It's completely legal. You'll receive documentation of the specific policy violations. Now please leave. Security will escort you out. You'll hear from my lawyer, she screamed as they guided her toward the exit. I welcome that conversation. My voice remained calm. My lawyers have been preparing for it. The auditorium doors closed behind her with a resonant slam that echoed like a gavel strike. Final. Irreversible. I turned back to the room. Mark sat frozen, his face a mask of devastation and disbelief. Around him, colleagues whispered, some sympathetic, most just shocked by the spectacle. I want to be clear, I continued, my voice softer now, but no less firm. This company was built on hard work, innovation, and mutual respect. Most of you exemplify those values every day. You're the reason Apex succeeded. You're the reason I'm proud of what we've built. Scattered applause started, then grew. People were standing. Not for me, exactly, but for the validation that their honest work mattered. That merit wasn't just a word in a handbook. But actions have consequences, and those who violate our trust, who steal from colleagues, who misuse company resources, they cannot remain. Standards matter. Integrity matters. I looked directly at Mark then, really looked at him, the man I'd loved, the man who'd called me worthless while I signed his paychecks. Mr. Reynolds, you're also terminated. For cause. Human Resources will provide you with documentation. You have until end of business today to collect your personal belongings, under security escort. His lips moved. I saw him form my name, M, but no sound came out. This meeting is adjourned, I said. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your commitment to Apex. Let's build something we can all be proud of. The applause swelled again as I walked off stage, leaving Mark sitting in that auditorium surrounded by colleagues who now knew exactly what he'd done, exactly who his wife, ex-wife, really was. The truth had been revealed, and it was more devastating than any lie could have been. I'd barely made it backstage when I heard footsteps running behind me. Mark burst through the side door, his face wild with desperation and fury. Emily, wait, please. We need to talk. I turned to face him, and Tom stepped between us immediately, a wall of protective muscle. Miss Thorne, you want me to remove him? Give us a moment, I said. Stay close. Tom nodded, moving just far enough away to give us space, but ready to intervene if needed. Mark looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen what he wanted to see. Babe, please. This is crazy. You own Apex? You've owned it this whole time? His voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Don't babe me, I said, and the words came out sharp as shattered glass. You lost the right to call me that when you called me worthless to impress your mistress. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I didn't mean, that was just talk. I was trying to what? Make yourself look good by tearing me down? By dismissing everything I sacrificed for you? The fury I'd been controlling for months finally broke free. I supported you through 3 failed businesses, Mark. 3. I worked full-time while you found yourself. I used my parents' death money, my inheritance, to build this company while you told me I'd get eaten alive in business, and you had the audacity to call me worthless? People were gathering in the hallway now, employees who'd left the auditorium stopping to witness this. I didn't care. Let them see. Let everyone see what happened when you betrayed the wrong person. Every promotion you got here, I approved it. Every salary increase, me. That VP position you were chasing like a desperate dog, I decided who got it, and it was never going to be you. My voice rose, echoing off the walls. Every dollar you earned came from my company. Every opportunity, every bonus, every single thing you had from me. And you spent it on hotels with her while calling me dead weight. I'm sorry. He started, but I cut him off. Sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't undo months of betrayal. Sorry doesn't erase you planning to divorce me to avoid alimony while fucking your coworker in supply closets. Gasps from the gathering crowd. Sorry doesn't give back the credit you stole from junior employees or refund the $47,000 in fraudulent expenses you charged to my company. Sarah appeared then, walking through the crowd with her lawyer briefcase and a smile sharp enough to cut. She'd been waiting for her cue. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, pulling out papers, "we need to finalize some matters." "Sarah, not now." "Yes, now. These are updated divorce settlement terms." She laid them on a nearby table. "You have two choices. Sign here, accepting the terms as outlined, which are, I should mention, generous, given the circumstances, or refuse, and we'll proceed to court where we'll introduce all the evidence of your fraud, your assault of Ms. Wilkins. Yes, we have that on camera, and your systematic deception." Mark looked at the papers like they were a death sentence. "What are the terms?" "No alimony. Asset division 85-15 in Emily's favor. She owned virtually everything anyway. You keep your car and personal belongings. No claims against Apex Innovations or any related business entities. Full custody of Lily to Emily. You sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding company proprietary information. And you agree not to pursue employment at any of our competitor firms for a period of 3 years. That's insane. I can't agree to... Alternative is criminal prosecution for fraud," Sarah said pleasantly. "Patricia's already compiled the evidence for the DA. We could also pursue civil suits for the stolen wages you took from junior employees. Your choice, really. Sign now, walk away with something. Refuse, and see what a jury thinks." The crowd had grown. Employees filming on phones, witnessing his complete humiliation, the mighty Mark Reynolds exposed and dismantled in front of everyone he'd tried to impress. "I need time." "You have 30 seconds, I said. "Then I call security and you leave with nothing except pending charges." His hands shook as he picked up the pen. I watched him read through the terms, saw his face crumble as each clause destroyed another piece of his future. No money, no custody, no career prospects. Everything he'd built his identity around, stripped away with a signature. He signed. The pen scratched across paper like surrender. "One more thing," I said, reaching into my pocket. I pulled out the watch I'd given him on our fake anniversary dinner, the one engraved "Forever." I'd taken it from his dresser yesterday while he was out. "This is mine now. You don't get to keep tokens of a love you destroyed." "Emily, please." His voice broke. "I know I messed up. I was stupid. But we had something real once. You loved me." "I loved who I thought you were," I said quietly. The fury had burned through, leaving behind something colder, clearer. But that person either never existed or died a long time ago. The man I married wouldn't have betrayed me, wouldn't have stolen from colleagues, wouldn't have been cruel to a child who'd lost her parents. Lily, I can explain. No, you can't, and you won't get the chance. She's safe now. From you, from your poison. Tom stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to collect your belongings and leave the premises." Mark looked at me one last time, broken, desperate, small. "I hope you're happy," he said bitterly. "You destroyed me." "No," I replied. "You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." Tom escorted him away, the crowd parting like he was contagious. I watched him go, the man I'd spent 8 years loving, now reduced to a cautionary tale about hubris and betrayal. Sarah touched my arm. "You okay?" "I'm better than okay," I said, and realized I meant it. "I'm free." The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. Legally, Mark tried to fight. Of course he did. Desperation makes people irrational. He hired a lawyer using borrowed money, filed a motion claiming duress, argued that the settlement was signed under emotional distress. But Sarah had anticipated every move. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, emails, expense reports, testimony from junior employees about stolen leads. The judge took one look at the compiled evidence and denied his motion. The settlement stood. The fraud charges were a different matter. Patricia had filed a comprehensive report with the district attorney, documenting every fraudulent expense claim, every policy violation, every stolen credit. The DA pursued it aggressively. White-collar crime in a tech company made good press. Mark pleaded guilty to avoid trial, accepting a deal: 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, and full restitution of the $47,000 in fraudulent expenses. Payments would come from his wages, if he could find employment again. Good luck with that. Tara fared worse in some ways. She'd tried to sue for wrongful termination, claiming I'd fired her out of personal spite. But the evidence destroyed her case before it began. Emails showing her actively stealing leads, her own admission during the HR investigation that she'd participated willingly, security footage of misconduct during work hours. Her lawyer withdrew after seeing the documentation, probably advising her to cut her losses. Within 2 months, word had spread through industry channels. Mark Reynolds and Tara Wilkins, fired for fraud, theft, and misconduct, toxic employees. Liability risks. Neither could land interviews at reputable firms. Last I heard through my network, Mark was working at a car dealership, and Tara had left tech entirely, working retail in another state. Blacklisted. Just like they deserved. Meanwhile, Apex Innovations flourished under my public leadership. The day after the revelation, I'd held a smaller meeting with department heads, laying out my vision now that I could speak openly. Expansion into AI solutions, investment in employee development programs, profit sharing for teams that exceeded targets, everything I'd wanted to implement but had channeled through Margaret. The company responded like a plant finally getting direct sunlight. Stock value increased 23% in 3 months. Employee satisfaction scores hit record highs. New clients flooded in. Word had spread about the dramatic leadership reveal, and apparently companies loved the story of the underestimated woman who'd built an empire in secret. I gave interviews to tech publications, carefully controlling the narrative. Not about revenge. I never mentioned Mark by name publicly. Instead, I talked about building businesses as a woman in a male-dominated field, about the strategic value of anonymity, about trusting your vision even when others dismiss it. The interviews went viral. Secret Tech's CEO reveals identity after building 47 Mummert's company ran in every major publication. I became an accidental spokesperson for women in business, for strategic thinking, for the power of patience. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. But the best part? The transformation that happened at home. Lily thrived. With Mark gone and the divorce settled, she stopped tiptoeing through life. She laughed more, brought friends home without fear of his irritation. Her grades improved. She joined the school debate team and discovered a talent for argumentation that reminded me of Sarah. "Aunt Em," she said one evening while we made dinner together, her mom's spaghetti recipe, "I'm glad Uncle Mark is gone. Is that bad?" "No, sweetie. Sometimes removing toxic people makes space for healing." That's what my therapist says too. I'd gotten her counseling after the divorce, helping her process the layered losses, her parents, then Mark. She says it's okay to feel relieved. It absolutely is. She smiled, stirring the sauce. "You're happier, too. You smile with your eyes now." Out of the mouths of babes, I was happier. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. I'd expected vindication to feel triumphant, maybe bitter. Instead, it felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. Freedom, clarity, the ability to be fully myself without hiding or diminishing or pretending. I stepped fully into my role as CEO, transparent, confident, unapologetic about my success. I hired 3 new executives, all women who'd been overlooked by competitors. I implemented the employee programs I dreamed about. I made Apex into not just a successful company, but one with values that meant something. And the watch, Mark's forever watch that had symbolized our broken promises, I had it melted down by a jeweler friend. The gold was reformed into a delicate necklace, a phoenix rising from flames, hanging on a simple chain. I gave it to Lily on her 13th birthday. "This is made from something that represented false promises," I told her as she opened the box, "but I had it transformed into something real, a reminder that endings can become new beginnings." She held it up, the phoenix catching light. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful and strong, and you survived loss and came through it intact. That's real strength." She hugged me then, fierce and tight. "Thank you for keeping me, for not sending me away when things got hard. Lily, you were never a burden. You are, a gift, always." 6 months after the revelation, I stood in my Apex office, the corner suite I'd never occupied when I was hiding, looking out at the city skyline. My company, my vision, my success, no longer hidden or diminished or attributed to anyone else. Sarah stopped by that afternoon, bringing coffee from our favorite cafe. "How's it feel?" she asked. 6 months as public CEO, no more shadows." "Terrifying sometimes," I admitted, "but mostly right. Like this is who I was supposed to be all along." "You know the gossip blogs are still obsessed with your story, right? Revenge CEO, they're calling you." I laughed. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about justice, about not letting someone's betrayal define my worth. "Semantics, but I'll allow it." She sipped her latte. "Heard Mark's lawyer tried to contact you again. 4th time this month." "What does he want now?" "Modification of terms. Claims Mark can't afford the restitution payments. Wants them reduced or forgiven." "No." "That's what I told him. Just checking you hadn't gone soft. I'm generous, not stupid. He stole $47,000. He'll pay back $47,000. Those are consequences. See, that's the Emily I know." Sarah raised her cup in a toast. "To consequences, and to women who enforce them." I clinked my cup against hers. "To building something real and protecting what matters." That night, I tucked Lily into bed. She still liked it sometimes, even at 13. The phoenix necklace gleamed on her nightstand beside photos of her parents. "Aunt Em, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think my mom would be proud of you? Of what you did?" I thought about Rachel, my fierce, brilliant little sister who died too young, who'd always believed I was capable of more than I gave myself credit for. "I think," I said carefully, "your mom would be proud that I finally stopped hiding, that I stood up for myself and for you, that I built something real and didn't let anyone take it away." "I think so too," Lily yawned. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of you too, kiddo. Sleep well." I turned off her light and walked back to my office, where spreadsheets and strategic plans waited, but I paused at the window first, looking out at the city lit up like a galaxy. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably bitter, probably blaming me for his downfall, probably telling himself he was the victim of a vengeful wife. Let him. His narrative didn't define my reality anymore. I'd been called worthless by someone who couldn't see value beyond his own reflection, but I'd proven, to myself more than anyone, that worth isn't granted by other people's opinions. It's built through action, integrity, and refusing to accept less than you deserve. The quiet ones, I'd learned, often hold the most power. The underestimated ones build empires while others sleep. And the woman dismissed as worthless? She was standing in her own corner office, running her own company, raising a child who'd survived tragedy, and living a life that was finally, fully her own. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably real that it speaks louder than any words. And sometimes, justice is just letting someone face the natural consequences of their own actions while you get out of the way. I'd done both, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The phoenix had risen, and she was never going back to ashes. So, to you, dear listener, If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you. I know it was long, painful at times, maybe even uncomfortable to witness. But there's a reason I shared it. Because maybe you've been where I was. Maybe someone has called you worthless or treated you like you don't matter or dismissed your contributions while taking credit for your sacrifices. Maybe you're sitting there right now wondering if you're crazy for feeling hurt, for wanting justice, for believing you deserve better. Let me tell you something I learned through all of this. Betrayal doesn't diminish your worth. It reveals theirs. When someone calls you worthless, they're projecting their own emptiness onto you. They're trying to make themselves feel bigger by making you feel smaller. But their words, they're lies, built on insecurity and fear. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Here's what I want you to understand about justice. Real justice isn't about destruction. It's about balance. It's about restoring dignity. It's about saying no more to people who've taken advantage of your kindness and mistaken it for weakness. I didn't destroy Mark because I was cruel. I stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. There's a difference. And family? Family isn't always blood. It isn't always the person you married or the relatives you were born to. Family is the people who see your value, who protect you when you're vulnerable, who celebrate your success instead of feeling threatened by it. Lily is my family. Sarah is my family. The employees at Apex who work with integrity, they're my family. Mark? He was just someone I shared a house with who never really knew me at all. I also learned that the quiet ones, the ones who are underestimated, dismissed, overlooked, often hold the greatest power, because while everyone else is performing, we're building. While others are seeking attention, we're creating substance. And when the moment comes to step into the light, we've already done the work that matters. If someone has made you feel small, remember this. They're threatened by something in you they can't control. Your intelligence, your independence, your potential. That's not your problem to fix. It's theirs. Now, I want to hear from you. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Let's build a community of people who refuse to accept being undervalued. Drop a comment below telling me which city you're watching from. Let's connect. Let's support each other. Because when we share our stories, we give others permission to reclaim their own power. I'm standing in my office right now looking out at the city. Lily's beside me, doing homework on my conference table. This brilliant, resilient kid who survived loss and came through it stronger. We're looking out at the empire we built together. Not just Apex, but a life based on real values, on dignity, on refusing to settle for crumbs when we deserve the whole feast. Remember, sometimes the silent partner is the one who owns it all. Stay strong, know your worth, and never ever let someone else's blindness dim your light. You've got this. We've got this. Together.